What is the most illegal thing you have done 100% as an honest mistake? Was geocaching with my significant other, and we didn't realize the GPS had led us to private property. A guy working at the property thought we were two teenagers. We both look young, up to no good, headed for the woods behind the building. We got the cops called on us and had to explain to the officer what we were doing and what geocaching was. For those that don't know, geocaching is basically the hiding of small containers by other people, sometimes with little trinkets inside, and finding them with clues and GPS coordinates. That's pretty funny. How did the cops react? The officer looked at us like we were crazy. She had never heard of it before and seemed like she didn't fully believe us. She said we were technically trespassing, and we apologized, explaining we didn't know and that normally geocaches are hidden in public areas. She also thought it was a bit ridiculous the cops were called instead of the guy just asking us what we were doing. We left without finding it. Thanks for the closure. I once walked out of Target with a bag of unpaid groceries in my tote purse because I had dropped them in there thinking it was my shopping tote. Was very distracted when checking out and didn't realize until I was home. That night drive. Google taught me a ton about Target's facial recognition system, and I haven't been back since. They generally won't do anything unless it's over $1,000. Not worth their time. I work at a grocery store, not Target though, and the guys at our front desk have literally watched people walk out the door with a dozen donuts in clear sight. Hell, I nearly stole something and didn't realize it until I got in the car. Obviously I went back and paid for it because I was not risking my job over that. After all, a while later they fired a guy for opening an Odge before paying for it. My old work has the same story, but with an Arizona tea. Someone stole my car accidentally. I was standing in an empty parking lot trying to figure out why my key wouldn't work in my door lock when I realized the dent in the back of my car was gone. Holy shit. This iced my car. I went back into the mall to use the payphone. Yeah. This was a long time ago, and I see an identical car pull up next to my car's twin. Some guy jumps out, runs to his car, and drives away. Apparently the tumblers were loose on my car's lock and ignition, and the key to his car worked in my car. My car had no muffler and was a colossal piece of shit. I can only imagine what thoughts went through his head when he turned the key and it roared to life and sputtered down the road. I'm sure he was relieved to figure out it wasn't his car. Older Toyota Corollas only had like 13 different keys for all the cars produced each year. Also 80s 90s Hondas, you can just sneeze near the locks and they open LMAO. I had a 98 Civic that was stolen with no damage to the ignition, and it wasn't hot wired. I mentioned that to the auto repair guy when it was found, and he was like, yeah. If you just carry the right flathead screwdriver you really don't need a key with this guy. I never tried it, so maybe he was bullshitting me. But my key worked just fine after. So whatever they did didn't damage anything. The damage to the undercarriage from the joyriding though. Glad my insurance covered that. I saw a guy unlock one and start it with the metal from a wiper blade. I was an Uber driver for the summer. Got a request to drive a guy from Southern Reed to Boston. A 2.5 hour drive. For a pretty $250. Went to a stop and shop to pick this guy up, which was odd, and he had 2 suitcases and a duffel bag on him. He got in. We exchanged pleasantries and we were on our way. After about 15 minutes of driving, I began to get a hint of some bud. Normal, a lot of passengers smell like that gas when they get in. But the more I drove, the stronger the smell got. It got so bad. By the time I got to Boston, it smelled like someone had taken 5 blunts to the face while hotboxing the car. With the windows down. Like I had never been around the smell of weed this strong. But the passenger didn't seem to notice as he never even looked up from South Park on his phone. Eventually, we got to his destination, a dilapidated house in the South End, and I asked him why it smelled so strongly of weed. He kind of got nervous and insisted he didn't know, quickly gathering his bags and ran into the house. He later tipped me $30 for the trip. Now I don't want to say for certain, but I'm pretty sure this guy paid me $280 to move a very large amount of weed across state borders. This was about a year ago, and you still get a whiff of bud. when you opened the door to my car. I'd say that's exactly what happened. There is a commercial deodorizer that might help. It's called Merida. It comes in a 7ml bottle. I found it at the supermarket, but Amazon likely carries it. My dad uses it to deodorize the pub he is a cleaner for. Charlie work. Trespassed. I went to a different high school than my then BF. I went to meet him after school one day. I had a PD day. He didn't, and apparently, being a public school doesn't mean public property. 16-yo me didn't know that. They actually charged me with a ticket. Court date and all. Edit, a response to add to the people who feel I'm leaving out details etc. Of course I am, because rarely do people want to read huge paragraphs of response on Reddit. But here are a few more of the missing pieces if you want. In high school I was very goth alternative. I wasn't allowed to express this at the Lutheran private school I attended. So when I wasn't in school I dressed it up lots. I also had several facial piercings. My BF was a punk guy I met at the school. During the last half of our last year his parents transferred him to public school because they thought his grades weren't good enough. On a day off school I went to meet him. It was in the winter and blizzarding outside. It was 2005. He didn't have a cell phone, so I couldn't just text him to meet me. I had never been to his school before and arrived insanely early because I was worried about getting lost on Edmonton's bus system. Had to take 2 transfers to get there. So classes were still in when I arrived. I had no idea what room he was in, or where his locker was, or what door he was likely to exit. I went to the front desk to ask what room he was in, and they told me they couldn't give me that information, but they could make an announcement at the bell over the PA. I said that he wouldn't hear it. He's always listening to music and he doesn't pay attention anyway. Duck the system and all that. She insisted that's all she could do and told me to take a seat again. I knew I'd miss him if this happened, so I just said I'd wait elsewhere. I went to the exit closest to the bus stop so I could see if he was walking there, but I didn't want to wait outside because it was ducking cold and I was dressed inappropriately. The secretary called the cops they have on call for the district. They took me to some conference room to talk about trespassing etc. And I think they were also trying to determine if I was up to mischief. And he did charge me with trespassing. I had a court date and everything. I feel that this largely happened because of my appearance. Being all alternative I was judged by the secretary and cops. They couldn't see that I was an all A super academic student. That I'd never done drugs or drank underage. I was pretty straight edge. I don't know that anything had ever felt more unfair to me in my life, and it's certainly an experience that eroded my previous pretty solid respect for the police in our country. That's stupid. I would have just given you a warning. Guess someone was on a power trip. Blew past a school bus with its stop sign out happened during my early days of driving. I was driving down a multi-lane road in an unfamiliar area and I just didn't see it. Humongous yellow bus. Bright red stop sign, and it didn't even register until the driver slammed the horn as I passed. Thank God I didn't hit anyone. I almost cried when I realized what happened. Helped me become a lot more aware as a driver after that. We won't all admit to it, but we all were crap drivers when we started out. My dad took me on a test drive around the neighborhood in his truck. All was fine until I got to the part where I had to pull it into the driveway and park. I accidentally gunned that shit and nearly drove the truck straight into a cinder block wall. Me and him don't talk about that incident. I was fighting with an ex once. Took my foot off the brake not thinking, and almost hit a building. I came back from England with a bunch of Kinder eggs. Didn't realize they were illegal to bring to the US. Lady at customs asked if I had any food. I said no, because to me, Kinder eggs aren't food. They're freaking candy. Didn't even connect the dots in my head. Felt pretty bad when I was talking to my friend after, who told them about his, and they made him destroy them all. Political statement, liberate Kinder eggs. Kinder surprise is not the same thing, and is shit in comparison. Edit, Kinder joy are the crappy ones. Damn. My neighbor's brother brought me a whole case of those things from Germany when I was a kid. Accidentally came across real CP involving a grown man and a girl it guessed to be around 7. On ducking devianted. I've also accidentally seen real CP, but that's because my boyfriend at the time sent it to me, saying this girl looks just like you. I was 13, and the girl in the video definitely was not any older than that. I guess the mistake in question was dating that weirdo in the first place. How old was he? He was 17. No, he was 34. Hey, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.